My name is Tyrone Docherty. I'm president and CEO of First Tellurium, the largest shareholder. Those who check insider reports see I haven't sold any shares in years, much to my wife's disappointment. And I'm very excited to discuss with you about First Tellurium because I want you to know one thing. There is no other company in the world doing what we're doing. No other company. Chen was fortunate enough to pick us up and find out when Tellurium went wild, but there's so many layers to our story. I won't be able to get through it in 10 minutes, and you'll understand why. So I ask you to check with our website, firsttellurium.com, because what I'm about to tell you will probably be unbelievable for most of you. It's all true, and it happens if you're very lucky like we are at First Tellurium. There's a forward-looking statements. I hope you can read fast because I'm going through it. Share structure, about 84 million shares outstanding. As I mentioned, I'm the largest shareholder. I think beside my wife and myself, we have about 11 million shares, give or take. And my son's got a little bit, and with warrants, I think it's another 5 or 6 million shares. So I'm fully invested in what we're doing. And here's the key management. There's myself, and just give you a little bit of background because we build our companies differently than almost every other company out there. We make sure that our assets are solid. And we don't have to, if we do get in financing situations that, financiers always look for the red flags and the cracks, we make sure we don't have any. So you see, I was a former president and CEO of Quinto Mining. And just to put in perspective, I took over Quinto Mining in July 1997 with a $4 million market cap. And I was very fortunate enough to sell it 11 years later for $175 million. And we took shares of a company called Consolidated Thompson. We ended up owning about 20 to 21% of Thompson, and they sold 2.5 years later for $4.9 billion. So our little enterprise value was a little over $1 billion when we started at $4 million. It took us 11 years, but if you build a company properly, it happens. My board of directors, we got Tony Fogarassi, chairman. Not only was he a gold medalist of geology at UBC, when he graduated, he's also a lawyer, and then he went and got London School of Economics, got his law degree. Specialty is natural resource law, but much more importantly, if he's not the leading expert in First Nations law in British Columbia, he's in the top 2. And that's important. If you're serious about building a mine in Canada, specifically British Columbia, if you don't have a relationship with the First Nations, there's no point. You're not really being serious, okay? Matt Wayrainen, he was with me in Quinto. You can see that he's CEO of Solar Flow Through. They've built, I think, close to 100 solar installations in Ontario, so he knows that. I've known him for 50 years. Alan Schwabe is a businessman in Tawasin, entrepreneur, but more importantly, please look at my advisory board. I've got Dr. Lee Groh, professor at UBC, who is world-renowned, works for the government of Japan when they look for minerals. He is our QP, loves our property. And the other 4 gentlemen you see right there are all from First Solar. Chen talked about them. Fun show, as you'll see later on. He was our vice president. If he's not the top metallurgist in the world for minor metals, he's certainly in the top 2. James Gullinger is a fellow that was in charge of all of their property acquisitions around the world when First Solar is looking for them. And John Keller and George Klemick, we forgot the K there, were geologists that worked on all of their projects and ended up buying the Klondike property from First Solar, and we optioned it from them. Here's our 2 properties, the Deerhorn property in British Columbia, which is a polymetallic property. The value of that property, they've got so many minerals on there that if you don't do your investigation, you won't believe me. Basically, you see, we had a PEA, preliminary economic assessment, done in 2018. And here's our property there. We did it on only 20% of our property, the 450 meters. On the surface, it goes to 2.4 kilometers. And in last October, Dr. Groh and Tony walked it, and we've added another 1.1 kilometer to it, so it's 3.5 kilometers in length. And we've only drilled down on average of 60 meters, so 200 feet. So there's lots of potential down below. And I'm running through it because there's so much to say. Here's a beautiful picture of our property up at Deerhorn. The PEA was done in 2018 on $1,300 gold and 17 silver. And it said we had a 42% IRR after tax. We plan on, if we have to put it into production, if we're not bought out by then, we'll put it on through the small mines process because it's much quicker to get through the permitting situation. So as Chen was saying, why now? Well, the First Solar is making a big demand for tellurium, as you know, and this is an article from the S&P Global last year where the CEO of First Solar said that they wanted to increase their own demand from starting in 2024 between 900 to 1,100 tons a year just for themselves, and the world market is about 600 tons, and that's going to change because China is going to be cutting back on supply. Here's the tellurium prices for the last year. First Solar, and this is important. First Solar in 2012 talked about 4 projects that have potential to get tellurium from in the future. Direct mine, and you see there's one in China, one in Mexico, our property in Deerhorn, and Boliden, Sweden. And they said at the conference they didn't trust China and they didn't trust Mexico. So that leaves ourselves and Sweden, and the Swedish tellurium was sold a couple of years later. I don't know who bought it, but it was sold. So that leaves us as the free agent. But First Solar knows about us because that's from 2012. And you can see who was presented by Dr. Funshow, who is on our advisory board. This is a report on the Klondike property. You can see it's one of the highest grades in the world, and the Colorado government talked about it because the grades are absolutely stunning, and it's also high-grade gold as well. This is a thing that's going to make us different. University of British Columbia, almost a year to the day, January 26th of last year, made a press release where they have patented a lithium tellurium battery, which is far superior to a lithium-ion battery for 4 reasons, actually 5. Number 1, it's 4 to 10 times more powerful. Number 2, easier to charge. Number 3, lasts twice as long. And number 4, size-wise. Here's your lithium-ion battery. Here's a lithium tellurium battery, which is far superior. That's the size. So what does that do for weight when it comes to EV or anything else? And the 5th advantage, which is kind of important, is that it's a solid state battery, which means it cannot catch fire. So just think about this. If there was no other advantage to the lithium tellurium battery, it was exactly the same as lithium ion, but it didn't catch fire, I think the insurance companies and the automobile companies would certainly be interested. So when Chen shows the demand for tellurium going up, that's based on solar panels. What's going to happen when the EVs take effect? The demand is going to be even more so. And one of the programs they're working on is a lithium tellurium battery for mobile phones. 2 of the largest mobile phone companies in the world are involved. And as I've been told, the difference is instead of charging your phone once every day or 2 days, they think it could be once every 4 to 6 weeks. So obviously a game changer. Investment highlights in ourselves. Okay, we're the only tellurium company in the world focused on it. We're not dependent on tellurium because of our high-grade gold and silver. We average a little over 5 grams gold per ton and 150 grams silver at our property, open pittable. Phenomenal relationship with the First Nation, so we feel very confident that we will be able to get us in production if we decide to. And I just want to point out one thing. If someone approaches us to buy the company, I realize from past experience, the best time to sell something is when you don't have to. So when they come to look at all the red flags and they realize you've taken care of everything, the metallurgy was done years ago there, that then you can actually get a good price. And if not, the PEA says it'll take $28 million for us to put it into production, CapEx, because we're going to do a small mines permit mine for 6 months of the year. So if it takes us 3 or 4 years, so maybe the CapEx is 35 million Canadian. By then, we'll multiply all our gold, silver, so we'll have 500,000 ounces of gold, 15 to 20 million ounces of silver. So I think being able to raise 35 million won't be a problem. That doesn't include what's going on. And just for the record, I'm not a geologist. I'm just a businessman. And when we sold the property to Consolidated Thompson for 175 million in shares back in 2008, negotiations took, I asked a couple of guys yesterday, how long do you think? And they said 18 months, 12 months, 10 months. And I said it was 10. And the guy said, oh, I knew I was right. I said, no, it wasn't 10 months. It wasn't 10 weeks. It was not 10 days. It was 10 minutes because they needed the property. And I knew it was a great deal for my shareholders, as obviously what proved out. So There's so much more going on behind the scenes with our third-party relationship with Apple and Tiffany and Company, with our First Nations partner. I don't have a chance to talk about it, but again, I'm so excited because years ago I was sitting on that side of the audience. I know what we have. I hope I do not come across as arrogant. I know what we have, and with the demand for Tellurium and what we have, we're going to be an absolute winner, and it's my pleasure to introduce you to First Tellurium today. Thank you very much.